coming, the sun's zooming in, meltdown expected, the wheat is good there, engines stop running, but I have no fear, 'cause London is drowning. I live by the river.
Hello everybody and welcome to the By the Minute Arsenal podcast. Yes, we've decided to carry on, despite the club really not giving us anything positive to discuss. I did wonder when we started doing this at the start of the season if it might get a bit samey. We might have problems in terms of filling the time each week. Did we really want to do that? But Arsenal are really giving us plenty to talk about. But before we get into details, the introductions, I'm glad to say we have a full house tonight and impressed with everyone for turning up, quite frankly. I am Matt H. We also have Pete. Hello, Pete.
Hello, Matt. Delighted to be here.
You say delighted. I'm not necessarily convinced, but I'll take you at your word. And we also, of course, have Matt V. Hello, Matt.
Evening. Here from the latest instalment of counselling.
I know, it really is. I don't know if we should be charging for this kind of thing. For what it's worth, I watched Saturday's game, which obviously was not good, then went to watch my local team, who lost 4-0 at home after having lost their manager and a couple of players this week, and then watched England lose in the rugby. So really, Saturday pretty much blew, as I believe kids would say. Right. Well, let's get on with it then. This isn't a game in isolation. We know that things have been odd around the club, shall we say, for the last few weeks, and more to the point, have not performances on the field have not really been where we would like them to be, and things reached. Well, I don't think they reached a climax. We're still on their way to a climax. Away at West Brom on Saturday, 3-1 defeat, and to be honest, I mean, first things first, West Brom are very good. They're very well organised. They're very good on the break. Whereas Arsenal were very much not. I mean, there's a load we can pick at through here, and there's also been sort of stuff happening after the game as well, more manager chat, which we can come on to perhaps afterwards. But I know Matt was keen to vent, for want of a better word. Matt, the floor is yours for however long you want. What do you want to start with?
I mean, if we're going to talk about one positive, I was actually quite happy with the team before the game. I looked at it, I was quite hopeful. How naive. Obviously, once the game started, they've made such a thing during the week about how dangerous West Brom would be from set pieces and how they've been working on it to counteract that. So for us to then line up, and obviously we went for our zonal marking, which constituted little more than all marking the same zone. And deciding that the best plan of attack to dealing with this threat they'd worked so hard to counteract was to just let their best headers of the ball have a 6-yard free run, not attempt to block them off, and then effectively run into open space and head it in. I just didn't see any logic for that. And then for it to happen twice was astonishing, especially the second one where, again, Ramsey and Oxlade-Chamberlain, I'm not going to expect them to beat Dawson or whoever it is in the air, but do something, try and block them off, impede them in some way, because otherwise I don't see the point of them being in that position. For the second goal, everybody wandered out of their zone, if they even had their zones near post, decided to mark each other. So West Brom, the only challenge they had really was from each other, as three of them jumped for the same ball, and then afterwards, I'll say Chamberlain apologising to the fans for it not being good enough. But I mean, there's only so many times you can say that, and so many times you can say we want to turn this around for the manager when your performances on the pitch clearly don't show that. Because I refuse to believe Wenger sent them out there with no instructions about set pieces. So either they chose to ignore it, didn't listen, because I mean, you will struggle to find corners dealt with in a worse manner than those two.
Well, I bet if you look through the Arsenal back catalogue, you'd have a decent chance of finding one or two. But to have two in the same match and in virtually the same way, I mean, right, it happened to also be the same goal scorer, but it almost didn't matter because it was the same thing anyway. For me, the Oxlade-Chamberlain interview, and he then comes out afterwards and says, "Yeah, we've been working on set pieces." And I think, shut up! Don't say that. Don't tell people you've been working on that all week. And when the evidence is there that if you have, either you're incompetent or you've ignored what you've been told. I mean, we could probably talk for hours about the whole corner thing. I mean, I've got the stats in front of me. It was a good thing West Brom only got 4 corners, because on the ratio they were scoring them, if they'd had any more than that, you wonder what the final score might have been. All right, we'll give Matt a break for a second. Pete, any thoughts, some first thoughts on this game? I have to say, I had worries about it when I saw that Bellerin had a top knot. That was my first sign that the game might all go badly wrong. But Pete, anything on a slightly more serious level for this?
Not more. Well, no, not more serious. Defending was a thing of beauty, and if your idea of beauty is complete shambles, and that was obviously a major problem. But I do think that it slightly takes off the focus on the fact that our attacking was also hopeless, and everyone had a really poor game. Midfield, strikers, everyone. And as Matt said, when you first saw that team sheet, you thought, actually, that looks all right. That looks quite exciting. That looks like we could get at them. We could, we've got a lot of pace up there, a lot of movement. We've got Oxlade-Chamberlain maybe able to make things happen. Xhaka coming up with lovely passes all over the place, and Ramsey running around like he does behind a fluid front three, that all of which we know are capable of scoring goals. And they didn't do that at all. And I think had they performed better, then actually maybe the defence wouldn't have been such a problem. I mean, obviously it was a shambles. But actually, maybe if we'd been causing West Brom more problems than we were, then they wouldn't have had the opportunities that they had. Lots and lots of possession, but no ability to do anything really threatening with it. And I thought, to some extent, that's being ignored over the idea that it was the defending that was the problem.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I was going to come on to that at some point, because as I was doing this for By the Minute, so I made a note of the stats. The possession was 77% in Arsenal's favour, but the passing in particular was staggering. I mean, 130 completed passes for the home team, 658 for Arsenal, so that's a factor of, 5 or 6? Sorry, 4 or 5. I can't be bothered to do the maths now, but a lot. But of course, they were completely ineffective, apart from the one honourable sort of mention for Xhaka's pass, for Sanchez's goal. That's about the only pass that had any kind of cutting edge to it at all, which is something I found particularly frustrating, I suppose, would be the case. And the thing is, the problem for me with this is we've seen this so many times before. There's nothing wrong with taking a bit of time to try and find your opening, but there's nothing happening. The players look completely bereft of any ideas. Let's actually, before I go away from the stats, one thing: Arsenal only had 2 shots on target in the whole game. I mean, that to me is also pretty damning and fits in with what Pete's saying there about the lack of attacking options, or lack of attacking force, if you like. Matt, any thoughts on that other half of the pitch?
Yeah, it just seemed throughout that, as it's been the case in other games, we literally just play in a giant arch. From one wing backwards to Xhaka or Ramsey, slowly across to the other wing, run forward a bit and backwards, no purpose. Welbeck and Sanchez, neither of them really stayed central, so they're both pulling wide, so we're just passing pointlessly sideways. And even in the second half, when it's 2-1 or 3-1, if anybody was going to score, it still wouldn't have been us. Giroud came on, didn't really have a touch, so I don't think at any point I thought there's a real chance we're going to get back into this game.
No, and I think that's probably. I mean, is it back to something else? Because I've done some research, so I'm gonna get this, noted. I very quickly looked at. We've had 9 league games in 2017. I didn't want to look at Champions League stuff; it was too depressing. But so just league games, not even the cup games, just those 9 league games. In those games, we have. There's been 5 occasions where we've conceded a goal in the first. 16 minutes. Twice if you take the Watford game. Twice in the Watford game. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 6 times we've conceded in the first 16 minutes. And if you look at the teams that have done it, I mean, Liverpool and Chelsea, okay, but then West Brom, Watford and Bournemouth. I know I'm going back to the defensive thing here, but what's happening? When you start a game like that, you're constantly going to be on the back foot. I mean, yeah, as it happens, we got one back on Saturday reasonably quickly, but those other games and that... Pete, doesn't this speak of something more fundamentally flawed here?
Well, certainly those starts have been a recurring theme, haven't they? It's it's now a very big worry going forward for the rest of the season as to whether we can actually sort it out, whether the players can sort it out and improve to get us where we need to be this season. It's a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, we can move on to the wider picture, perhaps. Matt, do you have anything else to say about this particular game, or is it just best left unsaid?
A quick mention for Ozil's injury.
Of course.
Came up on Friday or Thursday. He got a hamstring injury in training to add to his long list of ailments, and yet it occurs that he's perfectly fine for international duty and will play on Wednesday. I'm obviously not an expert on sports science or injuries, but for a hamstring injury to fully recur in 4 days is pretty unusual. I thought.
Yeah, no. I thought something vaguely similar when I noticed he wasn't in the team. It's a shame that Perez wasn't in the team. He had a thigh injury, I think. So it's a shame he couldn't at least get on the bench. But yeah, seeing Ozil miss, and because of everything there is swirling around at the moment, you really don't know. Maybe it's a genuine thing, although the way things have been going for him over the last few weeks, you were quite right to question that. But you just don't really know what's going on with it. But yeah, even without him there, though, I thought the team looked okay. But they're just not playing remotely near where their capabilities are, where we've seen them play. And there's already stuff today about, are they not playing for the manager already? I'm not even sure that's the case. I think, if anything, they're trying to play just what the manager wants them to do. I think the leadership is lacking from there. To go out and do the same as you've done for the last 20 years. I mean, not literally, but that's the problem. There doesn't seem to be any invention or any way to break out and try something different. But we'll come to that in a second. Pete, anything else on this particular game?
Anyone want to talk about the penalty shout?
Feel free. Where you go.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It probably was a penalty, wasn't it? We didn't get it.
We didn't get it. What was the score at that point?
Would have made a huge difference to the game, but again, I thought it was a pretty good shout and probably should have been given. And I also thought that there should have been some action taken about the tackle on Sanchez that took him out of the game completely, in effect.
McLean's challenge. Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit about that, wasn't there? Those particular tactics. I mean, yes, it was a bad challenge, but I don't know if we should be focusing too much on it. It's certainly worth mentioning.
No, but I think it's worth thinking about in terms of. I mean, that I just can't believe the reaction a lot of the time that from pundits that this gets completely just accepted about. And we've seen it loads of times now that. These sorts of what they call meaty challenges or good old-fashioned challenges just get ignored, and even when they end up actually injuring someone to the point that they can't play to their potential, and obviously it could have been a lot worse. That we don't even know whether it's going to be a significant injury for Alexis. So I get a bit annoyed about that. There's also a bit of a worry, I think, about Czech's injury. How bad that will be. And again, I think that actually has a lot of influence on the game as well. I think the fact that you use up a substitution on the goalkeeper early means it limits your options. I suspect maybe Sanchez would have come off earlier for his injury if we'd still had 3 substitutions left. But having used one already, I think it makes it very difficult to then think, well, is there anything else we can do, or can we take off our best player in effect earlier than we would like to, when we only have one further substitution? I think all those things probably had an impact on that game, but as I say, there's not really any excuse for the very poor performance.
No. From everyone. I was going to say, if I had to pick an Arsenal man of the match, well, that seemed like a bit of a stretch, it would have probably been Cech, because those couple of saves he made while he was on could have been very. I mean, it didn't matter in the end really, but could have been very important. He was left a bit exposed and did a good job on 2 occasions, I thought. All right, we'll move on then. I suppose I should mention it because we should cover everything. Any thoughts on banners being flown over? I thought it was bad enough to see one. I didn't realise there was going to be 2. Matt, any thoughts at all on this particular aspect?
Yeah, they're a joke.
Yeah,
I see the one in support of Wenger was from a fan group in Hong Kong.
Okay, I didn't spot that. Okay, that's a good.
There were rumours that it was from the club, but a fan group in Hong Kong released a statement today or yesterday saying it was them. just seems like such a waste of money.
It does. I mean, I said in the by the minute coverage, it's just spend it on beer. You know, I mean, I appreciate both sides have points, but really, we know that there's no need. A banner doesn't tell anyone anything.
No.
But there we go. Pete, any banner thoughts?
Only that I can't imagine why the TV companies bother to show them.
Yeah, they should do like they do with I was going to say strippers, don't mean strippers, I mean streakers, where they don't do it at all. Some
exactly.
strippers at Arsenal games might make things interesting for everyone, but there we are. All right, well, let's move away from the actual game then, because yes, West Brom deserved the win. They were compact, they were organised, they broke very quickly, and they didn't sort of spend ages faffing around with passes before they had an attempt on goal. Since the game, there has, unsurprisingly, been more manager chat and the rest of it, as you would expect. Now, there was a story came out last night that the Dortmund manager had been spoken to officially by Arsenal, but that seemed to be just as quickly denied that particular story. Then there was a rumour today that Wenger had said he was going to stay, but the story I saw was that Tony Pulis was asked about it and just jokingly said, "Oh yeah, Tommy was going to stay," but somebody took that seriously, and I think one of the papers printed it as like a serious story. So obviously everything is completely up in the air. Do we see anything here that? I suppose what I'm saying is we've got the international break coming up. Are we going to know better where we are, do you think, by the time we come back to do this in a couple of weeks? Say before the Man City game or just after it. Matt, any thoughts?
I don't know. It just seems strange that the Guardian, Mirror, Mail, all of them last night were pretty heavily pushing the fact Wenger's going to stay, and that he's almost signed a contract extension and they're waiting for a time that's going to be good to release it. Well, I think we can shoot that in the foot. There's going to be no good time because it's not something you can subtly slip in. And with games against Man City and big FA Cup semi-finals, you know, there's not a good time because it's completely the wrong decision. So I don't know if they think, you know, if England half-time the England match, they're going to slip that in. I don't know what they're going to do. I imagine one way or another I would like to know pretty soon, but I don't imagine we'll know a lot more during the international break now.
I think that's the point. I remember now, seeing the Guardian thing, and as I was reading it, thinking that like you say, there isn't going to be a good time, because I think, for me personally, I've come to the point now where I think things have to change. It doesn't necessarily mean a new manager, but it probably does, if you see what I mean. But there's got to be root and branch, the whole lot's got to be changed, because the inertia that we're experiencing at the moment, whereas other clubs are not, is really noticeable. Yes, we could in theory still make the top four with a bit of a run put together, and we've got the players that on their day are plenty good enough to do that, but I think that would be paper and cracks. I don't think that would be anything fundamental. I think the uncertainty is almost worse than knowing either way. I think if you know either way, then at least that's done, and you know, people can have their protests and whatever else, and maybe that's it. Maybe they don't want to do it while the season's still going because they're worried about the fact that the protests, which have so far been fairly small, could get a bit bigger. Pete, any thoughts on possible developments in the next couple of weeks? Are there going to be any?
Well, I hope they make an announcement soon. Obviously, in my view, I'd like it to be that he is staying, and that's just my feelings about the manager. I don't want him to go, and I'm happy enough with him in charge, certainly for another 2 years, if that's what the contract is and that's what he signs for. I don't have a huge problem with that, and I think it would be sensible for them to come out and announce one way or the other as soon as possible, because, you know, not everyone's going to like it if he's staying, and that's fair enough, but, you know, get the announcement out there and people who don't like it can do what they want to about it and make their decisions about life based on that. But you know, it's probably best to get the Arsene himself seemed to say in that press conference afterwards that he had reached a decision and we would know about it soon. So whichever way it is, I think it would be sensible to announce it shortly, just so that we can all stop talking about it and stop saying don't know what's going to happen. And whichever way it is, then that's what is decided, and people can either like it or not, but at least we'll all know what the future is. And I mean, I was going to say, it's interesting. We're split on whether we think he should stay or go, but we seem to be in agreement they should announce something sooner rather than later. But we also seem to agree that they may well not. So
We're stuck in limbo a bit at the moment in terms of what's going to happen. I'm going to stop the manager chat there just for the moment because we've done it before. We'll do it again. So I'm trying to sort of parcel it up a little bit so we don't all end up doing too much, particularly when we don't actually have any information. I was thinking yesterday, we're actually going to have some information to discuss, possibly a new manager, or the other way around, a confirmed contract signing. But unless I've missed something in the last half hour, I don't think that's happening. So we'll move on for the moment then, and briefly talk about our next game. Now, we're not going to be here next week because of the delightful international break, but then we come back with a bang at home to Man City on the 2nd of April, 4 o'clock kickoff. Pete, are you going to that one? And if so, well, whether you are going or not, what are your thoughts on it?
I am going to it, and I'm quite scared, but I think it's probably a good game for us to come back from the international break from to some extent. I think Man City have probably as many problems as we have at the moment, maybe not quite as many, and I think it'll be a game where certainly, hopefully, we won't suffer in the way we did against West Brom in terms of facing a very organised and disciplined defence and lots of people wanting to kick lumps out of the opposition rather than try and play some football, which Man City will come and try and do, I imagine, and they will go by Pep's ethos, which is try and score as many goals as possible, and hopefully that will give us a chance to show the best of us.
They got a draw with Liverpool yesterday, which probably keeps us just about in touch in terms of the top four. So that's handy. The difference, I suppose, for City is things are not perhaps going as swimmingly for them as they would have liked. They have a new manager, whereas we have a very old one in at least two senses of the word. So he's going to have a little more leeway, I think. Matt, any thoughts on this game? I know it's a couple of weeks away, but any thoughts on the game?
I think our best chance is probably trying to turn it into essentially a game of basketball. One team attacking the other, because our defence recently has been a mess. Set pieces, open play, whatever. And luckily for us, City's isn't great either, so I think it might just be a case of trying to back our attack to effectively just whatever we can see to try and score more than that, because I don't back us to try and keep it tight and counter attack and score that way.
Yeah, no, when you put it like that, yes, it does sound like it could be some kind of goal fest, which at least might keep people entertained for a while, if nothing else. So, yeah, it's 2 weeks away. Stuff might happen between now and then, so we won't go too much into it now. So really only one other thing to mention, I think, now, which is a bit of a reprise of that. The FA Cup draw has been done, and we are playing City in the semi-final of that on the 23rd of April. It was always going to be a tough draw, either them or Chelsea or Spurs. Happy with the draw, or satisfied at least? Matt, any views on it?
Yeah, I think it's certainly better getting Chelsea and less risky than Tottenham in case we do lose to them. Consequences probably aren't as bad, so yeah, I'll probably take it. And compared to what we could have got, obviously going to be a really tough game, but that was always going to be the case considering the quality of teams left. Yep.
I think of the other three options, this was probably my preferred one as well. Doesn't mean I think we've got any better chance against them, but yeah, I think the thought of losing to the other two, at least we can delay that for a bit, even if we are successful. Pete, any additional thoughts on that?
No, not additional. I quite agree. I think it was probably the best of the three, and for the reasons we've just been saying, that it'll be a good game at least, and two sides having a go and see what happens.
Well, it'll be two sides. You assume that'll be all. That'll be their only chance of silverware, obviously. So yeah, that will might add a certain frizz on to it as well. All right then. Well, I think we've covered everything. I think we've done very well to last this long, given the mood in the camp. We at least now have a couple of weeks to have a break. The international break is upon us, so we'll come back probably the sort of 3rd of April, where we can chat about the City game in the league and look forward to West Ham and Palace, which will be the next two league games coming up. So we'll leave it there for now. So Pete, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Matt.
And Matt, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for listening, and well done for sticking with us. Things will only get better. Think of it like that. Although now I've got an image of Tony Blair, that's not going to help anyone. In which case, I think we should end now. Take care. Take care. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Cheers. Bye bye.